Hi guys, Steady Eddie here. Recently back from a hectic 4 months travelling around Thailand. My 4 months included a variety of locations which began and ended in that charming seaside resort of Pattaya. I also included Bangkok, Hua Hin, Chumpon and four islands, Koh Chang, Koh Tao, Koh Phangan and Koh Samui. So, 4 months of hedonism, travel, food, drink, and adventure. What a great way to start the year. So, the most common question I've had many times from those following my travels is how much did all that cost? Well, before I give you the grand total of what I spent overall, I better tell you what I'm including and what I'm not including. What I am including is the basics, the essentials. My initial return flight from UK to Bangkok, getting to and from airports, hotel costs for 120 days, other travel costs around Thailand, food and drink for 120 days, other odds and ends including visa extension. What I won't be including is the stuff involving the dreaded pandemic. I'm talking about PCR tests and the awful possibility of a quarantine hotel at an extortionate price. Hopefully those things are a thing of the past, so are not typical of what you will spend now. The other thing I won't be including is female company. I'm a lone traveller and my costs are based on what I spend, the essentials. Once you include female company, well, the sky's the limit. If you have a lady with you on your travels, you can easily double the overall costs. If you like to splash the cash on the ladies, well, that's up to you. I'm just here to report on the essentials of 4 months travelling around a variety of locations in Thailand. So, let's begin with the return flight. Well, my return flight was with Emirates and I got that for a very reasonable price. It was £465 return. Very reasonable. Now, flights vary a lot these days, and there are those who say flights have rocketed in price since then. But I've looked on the internet and I can still see reasonably priced flights. I should add that I missed my return flight and got another company on the way home, but I'm not going to include that because I don't want to complicate things. So how much should you spend on return flight from London to Bangkok? I'd say an average of £500. That's an economy price. If you want to upgrade to business class or whatever, well, that's up to you. But what I will say that is relevant to all is that if you travel in the month of December, the peak of the peak season, then flights will be far more expensive. They always have been at Christmas time. Okay, so let's say £500 average return flight from London to Bangkok. But the cost of getting from your home to your destination doesn't end there. How about getting to and from the airports? You may use buses, trains, taxis, or all three. A taxi from Bangkok to Pattaya is usually around 1,500 baht, but buses are much cheaper. It really depends on how you want to travel. There is also the return journey from your hometown to airport. I use National Express coaches to get to Heathrow Airport and it's very reasonably priced. So, however you choose to do it, I would add another £100 for those additional travel costs. So that's £600 we're up to now. Okay, so now to hotels. Well, as you know, if you follow my travels around Thailand for the 4 month journey, it was hotels all the way for me. No condos or Airbnb. They may be better value, but I know where I am with hotels and I like a friendly receptionist to talk to if I have any problems. Well, the good news is Thailand is still one of the best value countries for hotels, far better than Western countries. You can still get a lot for your money in Thailand. But an important point I will make about the hotels I stayed in during my 4 months is that, owing to the pandemic, some of those hotels may not have been their typical price. Take the A Royal Cruise Hotel in Pattaya. When I stayed there in March, I had a nice double room without breakfast for 1,500 baht per night. I was more than happy with that. However, some people pointed out that it is normally a lot more expensive than that. You got to understand, I can only tell you how I find it, and in the aftermath of the dreaded pandemic, flights, hotels, and prices for other things seem to have gone all over the place. Please take that into consideration. Also consider there are seasonal variations in prices for hotels. So, how much did I personally spend on hotels for 120 days? Remember, I stayed in a variety of locations during that time. Most hotels were mid-range, a couple were upper range, and a couple were, well, not really up to standard, but that's travel for you. So hotels, of course, vary in price enormously, but I would say overall, a nice double room in a nice location with breakfast and swimming pool would cost an average of 1,200 baht per night, which is about £30 UK. But then I also stayed in budget hotels, which were less than that. So for me personally, I'd say the average hotel cost £25 per night. For £120, that is the grand total of 3,000 UK pounds, which I'd say is damn good value. Okay, so we're at £3,600 up to now. That's flights and travel to airport and 4 months hotels. So what next? Well, remember, I travelled around the central and southern part of Thailand. So let's talk about buses, trains, boats and domestic flights. Now these are generally great value, buses especially. For example, a bus from Bangkok to Hua Hin will cost about 300 baht, including your suitcase, and that's for a 4-hour journey. A train journey from Hua Hin to Chumpon will be about 420 baht. Boats between the islands can vary from 200 to 600 baht. As for domestic flights, well, I only took one. That was from Koh Samui to Bangkok, and at 95 UK pounds was probably one of the more expensive domestic flights. So remember, I covered a fair bit of ground, from Bangkok to Pattaya, Pattaya to Koh Chang and back, Pattaya to Bangkok, Bangkok to Hua Hin, Hua Hin to Chumpon, Chumpon to Koh Tao, Koh Tao to Koh Phangan, Koh Phangan to Koh Samui, Koh Samui to Pattaya, and finally from Pattaya back to Bangkok Airport. A fair bit of ground with buses, train, taxis, boats and one domestic flight. The total for all that domestic travel I would estimate at around £300. The most expensive part of all of that was the Koh Samui flight and a couple of taxi journeys between Bangkok and Pattaya. A taxi is a luxury, remember, but I'd still say that £300 for all that domestic travel is damn good value. So now we're up to 3,900 UK pounds. Not bad. We still have food and drink to talk about, yeah, but before that, let's not forget insurance and visas. Now, if you are going to travel anywhere outside your own country, it is essential to have travel insurance. I am not going to go into detail about the special pandemic insurance. I'm hoping it will be a thing of the past by the time you and I travel again. Let's just make the more important point that I was in Thailand for 4 months. This means that my annual travel insurance, purchased in the UK, only covered me for 3 months at a time, which meant I had to purchase additional insurance for the remaining month. Now, insurance is a very subjective issue, and because of underlying medical issues, it will be higher for some people than others. But I'll reveal that my overall travel insurance for this period cost me about £100, which is fair enough, quite reasonable. So, about visas. Well, I arrived in Thailand on a 1 month tourist visa, which was free on arrival. But I then extended it for 1 month at the Jomtien Immigration Office at a cost of 1,900 baht. I later used an agent for a further 2 months at a cost of 5,900 baht. So the total visas added to a total of almost 200 UK pounds. You may travel to Thailand on a different visa. I can only tell you my experience, which didn't go to plan, but that's a different story. So, between insurance and visas, I paid a total of about 300 UK pounds. This brings our total so far to 4,200 UK pounds. So, have I covered the important stuff up to now? I think so. That leaves us to the whopping, highly subjective subject of food and drink. 4 months of eating, drinking and being merry. How much? Well, food and drink really is subjective. I mean, if you really want a budget, you can eat nothing but street food and drink bottled water. Avoiding bars and restaurants is a very good way of saving money. But come on, who is going to really do that? You are here to enjoy yourself, right? Well, everyone is different, has different habits. Some people drink more alcohol than others. Some people insist on fancy restaurants all the time. And of course, some areas in Thailand are more expensive for food and drink than others. Bangkok, for example, will be more expensive than smaller towns or islands. What it comes down to is your own daily budget that you will set. I can only tell you about me, I can't tell you about you. That's the truth of it. So let's take drink. Am I a small, average or big drinker? Well, a glance at some of my videos will have many believe it's about time I enrolled at Alcoholics Anonymous. But I'm not so sure. I see other guys who start drinking early in the day and by midnight they are still on it. I don't do that. Yes, I like a cold beer in a hot climate and a couple of red wines to boot. But I'd still say I'm quite average when it comes to farangs, spending money on booze. As for the food, well, I don't do much street food. I like to sit down at a small, reasonably priced restaurant. Fancy restaurants? Not for me. I don't believe the more you spend on a meal, the better it is. I've had expensive meals which have failed to deliver. Instead, I like to find a budget restaurant which I like, and I stick with it during my stay. So, the daily budget for food and drink in Thailand. Well, remember, some days you will spend more than others. 4 months is a long time, and I wouldn't go hell for leather every day. My average daily expenditure on food and drink would be 30 UK pounds. With that, I'm including the stuff you may buy from a 7-Eleven and take to your hotel room. 30 UK pounds a day average. For 120 days, that's 3,600 UK pounds. So that means for 4 months of travel to and around Thailand, the grand total is 7,800 UK pounds. But is that the grand total, or is there anything more we need to add? How about the odd day trip or excursion you may want to take? How about the unexpected expenditure, like your suitcase gets worn out and you may need to buy a new one? How about a few odds and ends in the market you may want to buy? I think it's fair to say we can add another £200 for all of this. And this brings the final overall 4 months budget to a very reasonable price of 8,000 UK pounds. £8,000 to travel around Thailand for 4 months. I know what some of you are thinking, but I heard Thailand was dirt cheap and you can do it for far less than that. Yes, I'm sure you did hear that from someone. I've heard it too. But I'm being realistic. £8,000 for 4 hugely enjoyable months may not be dirt cheap, but it's a lot cheaper than many European countries, that's for sure. Remember, this is what I spent for 4 months as a solo traveller. If you want to include female company along the way, then that is where your expenditure really goes up. Well, as they say in Thailand, up to you. I'm just giving you the basics. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it has been useful to you if you were planning a journey like this. And if you want more detailed info on hotels and eating and drinking, then there are plenty of videos on this channel to check out if you haven't already done so. So, thanks for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. A big thanks to those who already have. Have a great day, a great evening at whatever you're doing, and I'll be back soon. Cheers.
When you come in Thailand, you go 7-Eleven.
Okay, and I got a sneaky feeling that I'm going to enjoy this.